I am connecting. It is recording.
Cool. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for that. Hey, everybody. Thank you so much, Candy, for the glowing introduction. I'm not sure if any of that's warranted, but today my goal will be to just kind of share some of the best practices that we've been putting into all of our virtual consultations, both listing and buyer. I'll focus on buyer today. My goal for this training or class, I don't know how long it is I thought it might be helpful for me to do a mock buyer consultation. Steve Vaccaro, what's up, baby? I'm gonna do like a mock consultation and kind of breeze through it a little bit. So I'm gonna ask two things, and before we do this, I'm gonna ask for something else. But when we finally get going on this, I'm gonna need one person to be the buyer. And so I'm just going to do like a live consult with one of you being the buyer, and then I'll go through like the presentation that we used. But before we get started, before everybody mutes themselves, just to make it fun, exciting, and creepy, what questions do you guys have right away before we get going, so I can address those while I'm doing this thing live?
Hey, Eric.
Yo.
I have a question, bro, and I don't know if this would be a listing question, but if you're two offers, if you have a listing, you're getting two offers, and one has an addendum for the Coronavirus Act and one doesn't. Will that base the seller's decision? Do you think?
I'll go ahead and take that. I will go ahead and take that question.
I love that. Pete, that's probably the wrong class, but Candy, since you're on this one, go ahead.
I will go ahead and take that question. And here's the thing. If every other item on the offer is exactly the same, and how often does that happen?
Never.
Okay, so it can be a piece if the seller decides that that's important enough to be a piece of whether to take into consideration whether the seller is going to accept it. It's just a matter of the seller can accept the offer and reject the addendum. It is, after all, an addendum. So if the seller likes the offer for everything except that addendum, the seller can accept the offer. You would write a counter offer saying the seller rejects the addendum, but it can be done.
Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Pete. Great question. Great question. No, that's
Wait,
okay.
nobody was asking questions.
So let me see here. Quick show of hands, right? Show of hands. Who here has already done a couple of buyer consultations online? One, two of you guys. Awesome. Okay, so two of you guys have done it. So do the two that have done consultations before, do you guys have any questions that leap to mind before I get started? No questions. Does anybody else have any questions before I get going?
I got a question.
What's up?
Are you on this buyer consultation, are these database, like this buyer consultation, is it somebody that you know or somebody you don't know? Like what kind of consultation is this? Because I oftentimes
that's a great question. I've done them all. I've done them all. Like we have spent the last 30 days just doing what we normally would have done in the office, right? Which is we've been prospecting as usual. And when I say we, I mean myself and the whole team, all operating remotely. So like we've all been doing the things that we did in the office, which is prospecting for 2 hours in the morning. And then obviously we do our follow-up and then we reconnect with our sphere. And so like during this time, obviously we have connected with our sphere a lot more. We have, exaggerated our touch schedule by a factor of 3. We are over communicating with the people that know, love, and trust us. And so to answer your question, we have done consults for people that we know, people that we don't know, everybody in between, right? For the purposes of today, I'll probably be dealing with the situation that most of you will be dealing with, which will be a virtual buyer consultation with someone you have not met yet. Okay, so that can either be a PPC, pay-per-click, that can be a referral, somebody passed along the client to you, that can be someone that you find while you're prospecting. Order of operation and workflow for us will be once we have identified the client, once we have identified either text message, phone call, whatever, we get the clients, someone says, hey, my cousin wants to buy a house, or here's somebody that I work with in the office that was talking about it. First move that we'll do is we will make a strong push to get client's name, last name, obviously, email, and phone number. My very next thing to do will be to reach out with a phone call, if possible, to set up the appointment. I am not trying to sell people that I have not met on the phone the very first time. I am not trying to sell them on myself or on our team services over the phone. That will defeat the purpose of the virtual consultation. Does that make sense? Like, you don't want to call somebody, spend 25 to 30 minutes with them on the phone talking about how awesome you are and listening to them tell you about how they have to have a single story or 4 bedrooms or whatever, just so you can set up a virtual consultation and then kind of go over the same thing over and over again. It will be redundant. So my only goal when I talk to someone right now is, number one, it's business as usual. Oh my gosh, Susan told me that you were thinking about buying a house, and I'm sure she told you how wonderful we are. And so to prove it to you, I would love to sit down with you and have a virtual consultation. It's really, really simple. All you need is a laptop, preferably with a camera and a microphone. If you don't have something like that, then we can do this virtual consultation on an iPad or a phone. If you have an Android, I can't do it with you, just kidding. But what I'll do is I'll just kind of go through that, and I'll just let them know that it's easy peasy. My director of operations will reach out to you and set it up, okay? So I kind of remove myself, second party. If you do not have a director of operations, guess what? You just got promoted to being your own director of operations, right? You can just send them an email, set up the Zoom call. Do not expect the people on the other end of this phone conversation, no matter their age or skill level, whatever, to be super, super proficient with Zoom. Like, be prepared to kind of walk them through it and do a lot of the heavy lifting, right? I'm going to set the call up for you. It's super easy. We'll spend about 20, maybe 25 minutes on this call. And my goal for this call will be for you to be, to leave this call being ready to take your real estate exam. I want to make sure there's no surprises for you. I want to answer all your questions, and I'm going to talk to you about the market, because a lot of people are really, really interested in, are prices going up? Prices going down? Is now a good time to buy? Should I wait? We're going to talk about all that. We're going to talk about inventory. We're going to talk about what it actually means to look at houses right now during this era of COVID-19. Like, can we even get into houses? How many houses can we look at in one day? How are we going to write an offer? All that good stuff. So by the end of this consultation, whether you're ready to buy today, tomorrow, or 6 months from now, I want to make sure that you are completely armed with the knowledge and that we are working together as a team. Does that sound great? Oh my gosh, yes, it does. So that's basically what I do. That's about as much selling as I do in the call. My goal is to make sure that they're going to get value from meeting with me. That's the biggest thing. My biggest thing is to kind of tease the value that they're going to get, whether it's through takeaway or by shining a light on something they hadn't thought about. I want to make sure that they're happy to get on this call, that they show up with some questions, that they're an active participant, that I'm not there strictly for entertainment. My goal at the end of this is to get a buyer brokerage signed. I want to get them connected via paperwork with me. And I don't care if they're a year out from looking at a house. I think that the reason that I like to meet with people face to face is the same reason that I have people come to the office, right? Since they cannot come to the office now, this will be my office. I want to make sure that the clients that I'm interviewing in this process are coachable. Number one, will they follow directions? Will they actually show up for my appointment? Will they be on time? If we set a 12 o'clock appointment for tomorrow, if you show up at like 12:08, and I know you're sitting around the house watching Netflix, that already gives me a good idea about your appetite for this process and how coachable you're going to be, and whether I can walk you through this. Will you turn into a sale 30, 60, 90 days? Does that make sense so far? Cool, cool, cool. All right, awesome. So that's my preamble. I'm going to need a buyer. Who would like to be my buyer today? All right.
I'll do it.
Who's going to be my buyer? Sarah?
I'll do it.
Is that what Sarah said? Oh, sorry, there's a couple of you talking. Sarah? Yes?
Leah, Sarah raised her hand and Leah spoke up.
Either one.
Okay, push-up contest. Who's it going to be?
Doesn't matter.
Leah can do
All
it. She
right,
has
Sarah.
All right, Sarah, I'm gonna pick on you. Leah, I'm sorry, Sarah raised her hand first. There you go.
Okay. All right.
Don't worry, it's all good. All right, Sarah, so you can be my buyer and you can be anybody you want to be. What kind of a buyer are you?
For the purpose of my own practice, I would like to be, I guess, I don't know, are we past the point where you would help me with figure out Zoom and have my fears that I wouldn't be able to know how to set up a Zoom appointment?
We're past that point.
We're past that point. Okay, then I am
past
going to
that
be the
point.
buyer that is looking in about 60 days.
You're looking at about, all right, so I'm just gonna ask you a bunch of questions. I'm gonna do it like I
Okay.
don't know anything about you. Cool?
Okay.
All right, and you were referred to me by Mary. Okay, awesome. Ring, ring, ring. We set up, so here's what I've done. I had a phone call with her. Let me set the table. I've had the phone call with her. She's excited to meet with me. I've already sent her the email with the Zoom call. She's gonna be on it. My email always stresses that if they have a laptop available, please be on the laptop. Many people will default, by the way, to using the phone. So while the phone will work, there's a couple of drawbacks to any phone that somebody might be on. Number one, it's noisy, a lot of feedback on a phone. Number two, screen, real estate, very, very small. Going to be hard for me to go over any kind of numbers, graphs, maps, anything like that on your phone. I'll find that people will start looking at it like this, and it just makes for a really weird appointment. So if they got a laptop, cool. If they don't have a laptop and she's going to be on the phone, we may not go over any property searches today. Cool?
Cool.
Awesome. Sarah, let's just go ahead and rock and roll. And ring, ring, ring. Sarah, how are you?
I'm doing great. How about you, Eric?
Oh my gosh, I love it when you talk like that. I'm doing fantastic. Hey, first of all, listen, I really appreciate you getting on this call today. I know that you don't have a lot of experience video conferencing like this. Can you hear me okay, first of all?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, fantastic. And so, listen, Sarah, I expect this call to maybe take somewhere between like 15 to 25 minutes, depending on how many questions you have. Before we get started, are there any like, oh my gosh, burning questions I got to make sure that I answer before we get off the phone?
Well, I don't really know. I'm curious, like if I were to go ahead and buy right now, it seems like the market might drop right now because of everything that's happening. Should I wait a while?
Okay, so your question is, what is the market going to do? I'm glad you asked that because we're definitely going to talk about that in detail. Any other questions you want to make sure I answer before we hop off?
No, I think that's my only kind of major concern right now.
Okay, super cool. All right, so Sarah, I don't know how much Mary told you about us. I'm going to go into maybe about 120 seconds of detail later on. I'll do a little mini presentation just so you kind of know who you're talking to and our track record here in the market. My goal today will be to ask a lot of questions, all right? And so at any point where this starts to feel like a police interrogation, just tell me time out. I'm kind of in the position where the more information you tell me, I'm somewhere between like a priest and an attorney, right? The more you tell me, the more I can help you out. It's just kind of up to you to help me fill in as many of the jigsaw pieces in the puzzle as possible. Sound good?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. All right, I love it. So do you currently own any properties or you're a first-time home buyer?
First-time home buyer.
Oh, first-time home buyer, we love that. You know, you're buying in kind of, it seems like a weird time, but it's a good time, believe it or not. All right, first-time home buyer, I love it. And what's your current situation? Are you currently renting?
Yes.
Okay, you're currently renting, and are you in an active lease or are you month to month?
Month to month.
Month to month. And so do you know what it looks like to get out of that lease? I'm sure you're kind of excited about that.
Yeah, I have a real good, I just got to give them 30 days notice.
30 days notice? All right, cool. All right, and since we're talking about time frame, listen, so Sarah, you wave your magic wand. I can teleport you into any house you want. When do you want to make this move happen?
Well, I say 60 days because, you know, to give 30 days notice and to have a little bit of time to kind of prepare and be ready and not feel stressed. But to be honest, if something perfect came along that matched my criteria, I wouldn't mind either way, going a little bit sooner or waiting a little bit longer.
Okay, so I'm just going to kind of put down here, and this can change, by the way. I'm going to put down here a rough date to have me putting keys in your hand June 15th. How does that sound?
That sounds good.
Ooh, I like it already. Okay. And I promise after we get through all these questions, we're actually going to do some fun stuff, like actually talk about a house. Cool? All right, awesome. So listen, Sarah, do I have your permission to kind of talk about money for a little while?
Absolutely.
All right. So it does take a little bit of money to actually buy a home. Are you thinking about paying cash for this house or financing part of it or all of it?
I'd be financing part of it.
Financing part of it. Okay. And so if I asked you to kind of all the money that you got, even the money hiding in the sock drawer right now, how much money do you currently have to throw at this home purchase?
60,000.
60,000. That's fantastic. By the way, kudos to you for that. That's excellent. Okay. Do you already have a lender that you trust, or have you been pre-qualified for a loan?
I have not. I don't have a lender, and I haven't shopped around either.
You know, I almost feel like you're just feeding me these answers. This is great. It's like you've done this before. I love this. All right, well, perfect. So here's what I would recommend to you. You know, a lot of people think that home buying starts with picking the dream kitchen, and I want you to know that it always starts with finances, because I'm a big believer in no emergencies or fires or nasty surprises in real estate. So my goal today will be to set you up so that you're in a financial position that when you actually fall in love with a house that I show you when we work together, like it can be one that you can actually pull the trigger on. So this would be my recommendation. You know, I always encourage my buyers to shop around for their money. I love it when lenders compete for your business. The good news is we've done a lot of that vetting process. I've got an excellent lender that I'd like to refer you to, and then I would encourage you to even shop that around. But his name is Clay, and I'm going to have him reach out to you to give you some options. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, awesome. And when we hang up this call, I'm going to make sure that he reaches out to you. Now, when he reaches out to you, here's what I really like about this lender in particular is that he's very creative, and he's going to walk you through in English, like the steps that are necessary in order to secure lending on a house. And so can I count on you that when he sends you the loan application to go ahead and fill that out in a really timely manner and get it back to him so he can start crunching numbers for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to wait till my husband comes home and we can kind of talk about it. But yeah, I could get it back to him like within 24 hours.
Okay, fantastic. And I'm going to be reaching out to both of you again anyway, so all of us can discuss this. But it's really important to get that ball rolling so that we can actually get to the fun part of picking out a house.
Okay.
All right, super cool. So I'll connect him with you. Great. And we already talked about your living situation. So let me ask you something. I'm sure you've already been looking at houses so far.
Yeah, I have, but not getting too excited about it yet.
Okay, and how have you been looking for the houses so far?
Oh, you know, the usual ways, like through Zillow and a few different things like that. And
Okay.
if I pass a house that I like, I just type in the address in Google and see what Zillow pops up for me.
Okay, very cool. So by the time we finish this call, I'm going to make sure that you have some tools at your disposal that let you look for homes just like a realtor with up-to-date, super accurate information. So I'm going to make sure that you get some of that. I want to make sure that if you spend 20 to 25 minutes with me, that you get something out of the process today. Cool?
Okay, cool.
All right, very cool. All right, and then just real quick, Sarah, if you don't mind me asking, what are you paying right now month in rent?
$1,600.
$1,600. And is that a comfortable payment for you?
Yeah, actually it is. Even once I put the money down and everything, I'd like to stay right around that point so that I have money to do the other things I enjoy doing.
Okay, perfect. All right, Sarah, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start a little presentation for you. I promise it's going to be really, really quick. If I start going on for too long again, like let's come up with a safe word. The safe word is orangutan, all right? If I hear you say orangutan, I'm going to cut this short, all right? Because I do this every day, and so I can keep going, and real estate is filled with acronyms and et cetera. So I'm just going to kind of walk you through this process. Here we go. All right, perfect. And as you can see, I personalized it here so you can say, do you see the image on your screen right now?
I do.
Oh, look at that. That's some of our fancy marketing there. Let me just scooch on right there, and here we go. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about our team, and I promised that I wouldn't do this for more than 120 seconds. So basically what you kind of need to know about us, here's a couple things about us in a nutshell. The really cute girl you see on the left, that is my wife, co-CEO and partner, Julie Youngblood. She's kind of a big deal in real estate. She is the rainmaker in our team, and she is a national real estate coach. She coaches teams all around the country that did over $2 billion in sales. So that should matter to you, not because we're looking to coach you on real estate, but the fact is that we've probably seen almost every kind of real estate transaction under the sun. So if there's going to be a potential problem or a pothole in our transaction, like, our job is going to be to keep you safe. And me on the right there, that's my best airbrushed self. Used to be a team leader for Keller Williams. What do you really need to know about us, Sarah? I suppose that Mary didn't already tell you, is that we do quite a few transactions. And the really nice thing about that is not to brag, but it's just to kind of let you know that we don't have to sell you a house in order to pay our mortgage. Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of people out there working in real estate, and I just want you to know that you can count on a level of integrity and transparency with us. If a house is a really good move for you, we're going to let you know. If we feel that a house is maybe not such a good move for you, we're also going to let you know that as well. That way, when we do find the right one and we move forward together, you can feel really, really good about it.
Okay.
Cool. I'm not sure that I really need 2 airbrush pictures to tell you that, but I just feel more comfortable when I do that. All right, here you go. So a couple things that we want you to know, that in this era, I don't know how much you know about the restrictions or operating agreement that realtors have right now, but the governor has deemed us as essential services, which is great. Now, your health and your safety is paramount to us, so I want you to know that we've enacted a lot of protocols when we show homes. So we'll be only looking at houses that are currently actually occupied by sellers or vacant. We don't have the ability at this time to actually get you into properties unless it's virtually, if the homes have tenants in them. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does.
Cool. We're going to wear masks when we meet. Like, my goal is to kind of gauge your comfort level on how you feel about looking at homes. If you're one of those folks that feel really comfortable looking and shopping for homes online, then we can do a lot of this virtually. If you're someone that just likes to shop online to actually select a house, but you feel like you'd really like to go inside of it before we start writing offers, we can do that as well. I just want you to know that that's a conversation that we can have. Based on everything that you see going on in the news right now, like, how do you feel about actually physically looking at houses?
To be honest, I would be okay, like you said, shopping virtually. But if I was going to get to the point where I might put an offer on a place, I'd want to actually see it and be in the property.
Okay, fantastic. And we're going to talk about that, because I want you to know that we've got the ability to immediately create offers and get them out. And I totally understand that if you do want to actually take a look at the property, that we'll work with the seller and we'll figure out what kind of options that we have. The only thing that I'll ask is for a little bit of your grace when we get going on this process. Some of the decisions may be out of our control, but we're going to do our very best for you.
Okay.
Okay, awesome. Any questions so far?
No.
Wow, I must be knocking it out of the park. I love it. All right, so I'm a visual person. Sarah, what I like to do is to kind of prepare you for the transaction, and I promise after this we'll talk about houses a little more, is I want to walk you through, because you're a first-time home buyer, I want to walk you through what you can expect when we actually start shopping for houses, right? So the very first thing you're going to do, obviously over there in the top red corner there, is you're going to meet with a real estate professional like myself. Oh my gosh, you've already executed one of these. I love it. Getting pre-approved is the process that'll happen once I connect you with our lender, Clayton, all right? And he's going to walk you through the financial aspect of this. So far, you sound like you're in a financially, like you're in a great position. I want to make sure the lender puts you in the driver's seat with fantastic rate options. That's basically what you're going to pay for the house every single month that you live there, right? And so the only other thing I really want to talk about as well is closing costs. Remember when I said that there's some costs associated with purchasing a home?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So in addition to the down payment, which depending on what kind of loan that you get can be anywhere from 5, 10, 15, 20%, depending on that, you're also going to have closing costs, all right? So typically closing costs are around 2.5% to 3% of the purchase price of a property. Do you feel comfortable and confident paying your own closing costs?
Well, I would, however, like that, the 60,000 that I mentioned, I mean, that's total what I have. So I would have to figure out how to save some of that unless I could figure out a way to get the seller to help me out with that.
Absolutely. And listen, and that's a great point. I want you to know that in some specific circumstances, it may be possible for us to actually negotiate directly with the seller to cover some of those closing costs for you. A word of caution. I want you to know that you are in the driver's seat and we'll do whatever you like. I like to have this conversation up front because if you can pay your own closing costs, it will make your offer the strongest offer that is tendered to the seller. We're still very much in a market with low inventory where sellers are receiving multiple offers. So if we happen to pick a really good house and it's priced well, I don't want you to lose it over closing costs. That's why I have this conversation in the beginning. If you can pay it, then I would prefer that you did. If you cannot or you won't, then I can always sit down with the seller and see if we can work something out. But that's something I would do as a last resort. I want to make sure that you win.
So do you think then that if I wanted to be able to deal a little bit in that type of a situation, I would be better off asking the seller to maybe go down a little bit in price, but pay for my own closing costs?
So let's talk about the market a little bit, and maybe that'll give you a better answer. So I can tell you right now that while the inventory has tripled in our market, we're still well below a 2-month supply. And I would say that anything below a 6-month supply in this market right now is still kind of a seller's market. So we're not seeing sellers give up a ton of concessions. You can still win in this market because our interest rates are so low right now that you're ultimately going to pay less every month to own the same house. So I can tell you that it's very much a case-by-case situation. I don't need to be cagey with you. I want you to know that we'll look at each house individually, right? If we're doing our homework, we're only looking at 9s and 10s that you want to see. So I don't expect us to look at 20 houses. I expect us to look at less than 5. If I'm asking you enough questions and we're only looking at the crown jewels. And each one of those houses, what we'll do, if you fall in love with it, we're actually going to run the numbers on it just like an appraiser would, right? Now, disclaimer, I'm not an appraiser, but I'm going to look at the house the way they will. And we'll know right from the beginning if the seller is asking too much for the house, if they're right in the market, or maybe if they're not asking enough. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, super cool. And we're going to do that on a case-by-case basis. We'll do that by searching for homes. And I'm going to encourage you, Sarah, like during this process, as we start looking, I want you to know it can happen very, very quickly. As a matter of fact, sometimes I'll take people out and they fall in love with the very first house that they see. I want you to give yourself permission to do that because it can happen. I want you to know that when we really get serious and we start looking at houses for real, I'm going to really get into the nitty-gritty with you about what's important. Because I'm not interested in you seeing houses that might work or just merely okay. I want you to be really excited and looking forward to looking at every house that we actually do go take a look at. So we're going to search for those houses together. And when we do make an offer, I'm going to encourage you to move faster and then understand that we'll have some time to breathe afterwards. My goal for you during this process, Sarah, is once we start identifying these houses, is my goal will be to take it off the market for you long enough so that you can actually decide if this is the house for you. Do you mind if I explain?
Yeah, I don't really know what you mean by that.
Okay, perfect. So let's say we're looking at some houses and we go and we drive to a house. We take a look at it and you say, you know what, Eric, this is the house for me. This is the one I want. And I'll take a look at the comparable sales. We'll come up with a good value. I'll help you put your best foot forward and write a strong offer that I hope will get accepted. When it gets accepted, all that means is that we've tied up the property. We haven't actually purchased it yet. But what we've done, if the sellers accepted the offer, they've taken it off the market so nobody else can come out and snatch it out from under you. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
Awesome. I'm going to encourage you to do that when we find the house that's the one, because then I'm going to build in what's called a due diligence period. It's in our contract. It's basically your right of rescission. That's fancy for you can walk away from the deal for any reason within the first 10 days, right? We're going to move really, really fast to tie up the property. Then we're all going to step back, take a deep breath, and you and your husband are really going to decide. By the way, what's your husband's name?
Greg.
Greg. You and Greg are really going to sit back, take a deep breath, and think about how many referrals you can send your new favorite realtor. No, I'm kidding. You're going to sit back, take a deep breath, and you're going to decide if this is the house for you, right? During those first 10 days, and I want you to know you have those 10 days, whether I write 1 offer or 10 offers, right? You're always going to have time to really consider this purchase. If you're someone who really likes to take their time and think about things and, like, I really like this house, I'm going to go home, I'm going to sleep on it. I want you to know that this part of the process can feel very uncomfortable. It will feel very stressful. It will be very high with emotion, but I want you to know that we have to get through that part so then we can really decide. Anyway, in that first 10 days, I'm going to encourage you to do crazy things like drive by at 2 o'clock in the morning and listen for unusual noises. I'm going to encourage you to investigate the neighborhood and see where you're actually going to be doing your shopping, right? Because you're not just buying house, you're buying community, you're buying neighborhood. So I'm going to encourage you to do all those things. And at the same time, I'm going to encourage you to get a home inspection. All right. Now, those are not legally required in the state of Nevada, but I want you to know I highly encourage it. It makes sense. You're going to buy a $300,000-$400,000 asset. You want to make sure it's got a great roof, right?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to help you organize an inspection. You can be at the inspection if you'd like. I know that there's some new regulations coming around with different inspection companies. So we're going to kind of play that one by ear a little bit, but one way or the other, the inspector will absolutely generate a 65-page report full of photographs and video. They're going to zap the walls. I've got the inspector in there looking for giant red flags for you guys, Sarah. I've got the inspector in there looking for problems with the slab, bad roofs, air conditioning units that are going to explode, you know, active water leaks, etc. I'm not so much looking for maintenance items. I'm looking for safety and structure. And we're going to go over that report together, and I'm going to walk you through it. And depending on what we find, which, by the way, we may go through this inspection report and find nothing wrong, but we're going to go through it, take a look, and if there's anything you want me to ask the seller to correct within reason, I'm going to make sure to do that for you. And then we'll make sure that the work is done by a licensed handyman or contractor, and they will have to provide receipts to us for the work done. Or I may ask for a credit if you decide that you want to move that towards your closing costs so you have less out of pocket. Just depends on what we find in the inspection.
Okay.
Sound good?
That sounds good.
Before we get going, I just want to make sure that there's one other thing that we talk about when we actually get to the offers, and that is, do you know what earnest money is?
No, I don't.
Okay, so earnest money is basically, in a nutshell, it's the money that we send along with an offer to let the seller know that we're serious, that we've got some skin in the game. Now, this is still your money. In your expected price range, I expect the earnest money to be somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000, okay? I want you to know that this is your money, and it's my job to take care of this money through the life of the transaction until we either close on this house and you get keys, or we decide to walk away, in which case it'll be my job to get that money back for you, all right? This money can be used as part of your down payment. It can go towards your closing costs, but basically it's the money that we send with any offer to a seller once they accept it to let them know that we're in the game with them.
Okay.
Sound cool? Do you have any questions around that?
No, I guess I really don't.
Okay, cool. I told you this would be a little information dense. I'm almost done, I promise. The only other thing I want to go over with is I want you to feel really comfortable and confident with any house that we buy, regardless of age, is the fact that I'm going to negotiate a full soup to nuts home warranty with the seller, and they're going to pay for it. That means for the first 12 months, you can really have peace of mind with any home that you buy, right? It'll cover all the major systems. There's an out-of-pocket deductible in case the air conditioner blows up, but I want you to rest easy at night that the home that you fell in love with, made an offer on, and bought is actually going to be in good shape for the next 12 months.
Okay. That sounds great.
Cool. So we're going to do that. I want you to know that I'm going to go ahead and email you a blank copy of our residential purchase agreement. We refer to it as the RPA, because I don't know, are you one of those people that goes to the car dealership and like signs 50 pieces of paper, or do you like to read the entire thing?
Nope. I just want to sign it.
Oh my gosh, I love it. You're still going to get a blank copy of the contract. I'm going to have my director of ops send it out to you. Just in case you have some questions, I want to make sure that you're feeling really comfortable with the document, because the next time you see it is going to be right after we walk out of a house you fall in love with and I'm telling you to write an offer. So I don't want that to be the first time it comes through in a 56-page DocuSign. All right? So we're going to go over that. I want to make sure you have the documents. And then let's say we are in contract. Let's say we get through the inspection process. Remember how I told you there were 10 days? On the evening of the 9th, I'm going to call you up and I'm going to say, Sarah, are you and Greg still 100% in love with this house? Do you still love it? And if you say, yes, absolutely, that's what we want to do, we're going to keep moving forward. If something has happened and you're like, you know what, this is not going to be the house for us, I want you to know that at that point, we kill the deal and you get your earnest money refunded to you. All right?
Okay.
Okay, so let's say you do love it. The very next thing you're going to do is you're probably in your price point in your range, depending on the part of town that you like to buy in. You may buy a home in a common interest community or an HOA, homeowners association. So you're going to have a few days to kind of take a look at the paperwork package the seller sends to us. I'll let you know about those deadlines, but basically we'll have another loophole that opens. And for the next 5 days after that, you'll be able to take a look at the HOA package. And for any reason, if there's something in there that you see that you don't like, or you've just fallen out of love with the house, I want you to know that we'll be able to kill the deal based on that and get your earnest money refunded to you.
That's great.
I know it sounds a little schizophrenic, right? It sounds like I'm going to do everything I can to find you a great house. Then I'm going to give you 50 reasons to get out of the deal. But I want you to know, like, I'm one of those people, like, I want you to love it all the way through, not just in the beginning, right?
Okay.
The only other thing that we'll have to get through at this point is that your lender is going to send out an appraiser, right? An appraiser is someone who's going to independently assess value of the home. And if we've done our homework going in, I want you to know that appraisers are just like realtors, right? We're not all created equal. So sometimes we can get a bad appraisal. Typically, we get a good one. Well, the appraisal will come in, it can come in above value, like at which point we'll high five each other, we'll be super excited, or it can come in at value, which means congratulations, you paid fair market value for your house, or it can come in low. If the appraisal comes in lower, let's use back of napkin math here. Let's say the house is 375 and the appraisal comes in at 365. Okay, we're gonna hit the brakes. I'm glad you asked. And I'll go back to the seller with the good news that they can do a price improvement on their home down to 365. I'm not a big fan of you paying over appraisal unless it's something that's, you know, very, very negligible and you really love the house. I want you to know that outside of the home inspection, which I talked about, the HOA, and then ultimately the appraisal, once we get through those giant, you know, 3 stepping stones, then it's smooth sailing pretty much. As long as we're all in agreement, the last 2 weeks to the transaction, you'll be getting things ready. I'll be encouraging you to do things like not make any large purchases. Don't buy the washer and dryer that's on sale at Best Buy. Don't buy a car or a boat, because any large purchase like that, and your lender is going to tell you this again, any large purchase could potentially throw your loan out of whack. And I want to protect your earnest money and protect your position in the transaction.
Okay.
Cool. All right. And then if everything goes well, we'll get to your close of escrow. You'll sign in the morning. They'll release it to record. That process usually happens as long as you sign in the morning, usually happens by the afternoon. And then we'll get an email. Your property will record. You will be the legal property owner. I'll meet you at the house, unroll a red carpet. We'll high five each other, belly bump in slow motion, and you'll give me 5 referrals because you'll be overjoyed. Doesn't that sound awesome?
That sounds awesome.
Look at that. And you thought we were going to meet today to talk about kitchens and single story versus 2-story, right?
Right.
I love it. Anyway, listen, I want you to know that we're going to kind of go over this stuff again and again and again, Sarah. Like my whole point in doing this with you today is that you have at least some understanding about some of the costs involved, some of the workflow, and some of the things that will pop up. We're going to go over that again and again and again, right? But in the meantime, I just wanted you to know what you're getting into and hopefully get you excited and maybe just a little bit terrified about the process. So based on what I just went over, do you have any questions for me right now?
Well, I guess I really, you know, I just had a friend who listed a house, and to be honest, they were overpriced and it didn't appraise for what they had it listed for. So if I'm the buyer in that situation, I mean, you explained it really well, but would I could still back out of it if they don't want to budge? I don't want to pay more for a house than an appraiser says it's worth.
So here's the good news for you, Sarah. If we get into the position where we happen to get a bad appraisal and we get a seller that digs in their heels and doesn't want to come down to the appraised value, at that point, I want you to know that if we can't have a meeting of the minds, we absolutely can walk away and return your earnest money to you.
Okay. Okay. That sounds fair.
Yeah. Like our job is to have your back throughout this thing. And so listen, here's what I'd like to do. You've been a really good sport. And I know that we just kind of went over a ton of information right from the beginning, and I promised you we'd have some fun. So now can we talk a little bit about like your hopes, your dreams, and what it is that you actually want to buy?
That sounds good.
Yay. And then we all have champagne. Everybody's excited. And you go into what do you want?
Go into a what? What do you want? Yeah. What do I think?
And then we go into a what do you want? All right. So I can tell you guys, so like I just did the big meat on the bone process here. What I did is because I really want to set the stage for her. I want to set the expectations about what she's going to pay for a house. Depending on now, so what I just did for you guys was like 20 minutes on process, asking some qualifying questions, in a real consultation, because each one of them is different. Like our job is really to read the person and really start to figure out on the fly, like what is important to them. Like if they're a process person, I will lead with process, right? so you got some
Yeah.
questions. If the first 3 questions I get from a potential buyer are like, well, what does this mean? And what does that mean? And how much does that cost, right? Then I already know like what is important to somebody. If I get a buyer consult with somebody and they're like, right away, they're like, oh my God, I got to have a single story and, you know, I want it back to the mountain and blah, blah, blah. Then I know that the very first thing that we're going to talk about a little bit to break the ice is like, all right, if you had like a dream home, like what would it look like? Oh my gosh. In that case, we would start with all the fun stuff up front, and then I would finish with process. The reason I can never leave out process on a virtual consult is number one, I don't know who they've talked to already. And so I want to make sure that I'm different and that I can give them enough hard information and a little dose of reality in case they're one of those buyers that decides that because of the pandemic, they want me to go ahead and bomb in offers that are 30 grand below list, right? So I want to set the table for somebody about what they can expect with a relationship with me. I'm going to barf some information on everybody that's factual, but that also lets them know that I know what I'm doing. And I also want to communicate that I'm in the driver's seat. I will ask questions when I already know the answer. Like I'll make sure that their comfort level is up. But what I really want to know is that, are they coachable? Can they click along in this process? Are they financially qualified? Are they willing to meet with somebody on the phone, fill out an app, get that ball rocking and rolling? Because the easiest part will be to actually find them a house and get them into it. I just want to make sure there's someone that can buy a house and that I do want to work with. So the only thing that you're going to kind of tailor is, depending on your comfort level, is how much shmoo you want to do at the beginning. How much, oh my gosh, isn't this crazy? A couple of things that I don't do. I don't talk about how weird, scary, and strange the pandemic is. As a matter of fact, depending on who I'm talking to, I don't apologize for making a Zoom call. I don't say, oh my gosh, I know this is kind of weird and I've never done this before. Like, I don't act that way at all. As a matter of fact, what I might say is like, isn't this crazy? Like, this is so convenient and fast, right? We get to see each other right away. It used to be I'd have my ops director have to book us out an appointment like a week. Like now I can actually talk to so many more people in the day. It's really cool because we deal with a lot of buyers and sellers that also are in other markets like Arizona and California. So we've actually been doing this for quite a few years. Blah, 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 blah. I like to let people know that it's business as usual. The way I act, the questions I ask, the fact that I stay super transactional in this thing means that they can feel really good about buying or selling depending on their needs, right? Because don't be confused. Like everybody's got those questions, right? The most important thing people want to know is, can I actually do this thing? Like the fact that I'm talking to you. So it's my job through professionalism, through transparency, through being direct, being calming, using a little bit of humor. I use humor because I like to think that I'm kind of funny. I feel like anything I can do to get that comfort level off while giving the information and driving for the next step. So that's kind of like the consultation in a nutshell. That's what we do. We have the keynote ready to go. When you're using Zoom, if you're going to actually do, like, let's look at comps, let's do a property search, make sure that your browser is already open to the MLS and that you're already logged in, right? If you've got a little PowerPoint or keynote presentation deck, make sure that that's dialed up and ready to go so that when you go to share your screen, all you have to do is press a button and there it is, right? That's it. Bing bong. When you get done,
That was really, 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 really good. Okay, open it up to questions.
Are you dating anybody?
Well, that's a great question. I'd like to take that offline with you in a private Zoom call.
Eric, I had a question.
What's up, man?
By the way, great presentation. Question was, let's say you had this consultation, right? And let's say your buyer couldn't qualify right away. And let's say it's maybe 8 months down the road and now she's able to qualify. Do you go over this presentation again or?
Absolutely. Sure. Yeah, I would. So what I do is, here's the deal, guys. I do a presentation. I don't care if someone tells me they're moving from Utah in 2022. I truly don't give a shit. You know, like my goal is to get face-to-face, build that relationship, right? That I can't get through texting or emailing properties or whatever, because I want them to know that if they cheat on me or they go behind my back, It's a lot harder to do that once you've been face to face with me and we've had a great time and then I stay in touch. So to answer your question, Pete, someone's like, I can't buy it, or I find out immediately, oh, kind of goofball, I can't qualify. Hey, until I have 10 appointments scheduled for my day currently, I'm going to have a consultation. By the way, I get better at these the more I do them. By no means is this perfect. I'm not the oracle when it comes to this stuff. Like I'm feeling it out like most of you guys are. But to answer your question, yes, I would have the meeting. Then I would stay on top of her. And you better believe that the loyalty quotient will be off the charts if I follow up for 8 months. Like she's not going to buy a house with anybody but me because I didn't give up on her. And then I will do a shortened version of this again, hitting on the parts that I want to make sure that she hears: earnest money, closing costs, market is moving fast. We're going to make great offers. We're not here to lowball people. That's what I want anybody to take out of a buyer consult.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question.
What's up, man?
Hey, so I heard you isolate the top 5 houses that you were going to show, and you had made a comment that I'm just curious. Do you run comps prior to showing those top 5?
No.
Okay.
I don't want to. I'm not going to. Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, think about it. Like, I don't even know if she's really going to like them. Like, at the end of the day, the only thing I do when I look at properties, the most important question for me on a property is, number one, if we're looking at our search parameters, I know that they're on budget. If they send me a property, first thing I verify, is this still in your budget, right? I'm going to make sure that based on what their monthly comfort spend is, that's why I ask about rent, you know, and I can dig deeper on that if they're going to go higher. I want to make sure they understand the monthly payment. Well, I'm paying $1,600 a month, but my lender pre-approved me to $450. So, you know, let's look at $425. I'm like, awesome. Do you know what a mortgage payment at $425 looks like? No, you haven't done that math? Hey, are you comfortable with this? That's the very first, number one, right? That's the only kind of math I'll run on a property. I mean, I'll give it a cursory look. Is it easy to get into? Is there a tenant in there, et cetera, but I'll wait until they fall in love. Like, if that's the one for them, then we're going to run numbers on it. So I know that we can make a competitive, best foot forward offer. But until that time, there's no point.
Yeah, it's a waste of time. Otherwise, you had just made a comment that going in, you would know if the seller had the house priced right. So that's, I think a buyer that would fly over. That's why I'm asking the question, because that made me
so
think,
example.
does he run comps prior to it? So that's
right. So here's what we will do, right? Like, I'll coach the buyer and I'll say, okay, cool, guys. Like, we look at the house and I'm like, hey, is this the one? Can you see yourself living here? Yes. Oh my God. This is number one. Yes, it is. Oh my God. All right. Fantastic. You know what? Let me go ahead and run numbers on this property right now to see where we are. Okay. So listen, you guys go grab lunch and I'm going to go run numbers and I'm going to get back to you. Okay. Bang. Then the first thing I do is I comp it. And then based on my comps, I'm going to say, look, these guys want 375 and, you know, I think they're dreaming. I mean, but they've had a lot of activity on the property, so I don't think it's worth more than 365. That's probably as high as we can go. Last thing we want to do is bid more, win the property, and then get stuck with a goofball appraisal after you've already paid for a home inspection and the appraisal, right? You're out that money up front.
Yeah.
I'd rather avoid you the pain and suffering of that. So let's just do that way. Or if it's well priced or reasonably on the market, and I know that there's a ton of interest in the community, or like that there's nothing for sale in that community, I'm going to say, awesome, let's be aggressive and let's write a price that gets this deal done, and then we'll play it by ear and see what's up. That's it.
I have a question, Eric. I have a question. So as you're going through this consult, you said that you send them a blank contract for them to look at so they can ask you questions later. I think that's super cool idea for delegating time, so you're not sitting there going line by line. I've done that with first-time home buyers. It's a long time. They have a lot of questions. So I'm kind of confused at what point you're sending that and you're sending the actual buyer paperwork. So are you saying, like, after you're done with this part and everything's going great, now you're going to go, let's say I'm your buyer, and we're going to go online and we're going to go over the MLS and you're going to show me a couple properties and you're going to say, I'm going to tell you what I want. And you're going to say, okay, I'll set you up with a search. How about in 4 days we go out, whatever. When are you sending the paperwork, or like,
okay, so
to actually get signed?
Before we do all that, I'm getting a buyer brokerage signed. So at the very end of this, and I probably should have done that. Sorry, I should have done that in the consult. But normally what I would do is, based on whether I do looky homes and dreams first, and then go process, or if I go process and hopes and dreams. When I finish up with the hopes and dreams, then my script is to go over to cool. So listen, based on what I've shared with you so far, like, are you really excited to get started with me, or are you like kind of terrified, or both? And then, you know, like, they're like, oh yeah, I'm really excited. I'm like, okay, awesome. So the very next thing that I need to do so that we can get started is I'm going to go ahead and send over little paperwork that I need you to okay. One of them is like a buyer brokerage, which basically means that we're dating officially. All right. And then once you sign that, that means that I can work on your behalf. I can negotiate for my commission, how I get paid with the seller. Isn't that great that I don't have to negotiate it with you? And then I go back, I send all that paperwork over to them, and then we'll actually start getting into looking at houses, whatever. Like, I'll do an online, what are we looking at? But I'm not going to do like a monster search and start identifying properties for you until I know that we have a commitment to work together. And if people are like reticent to sign something like blanket, then typically what I'll say is I'll be like, hey, cool. I totally get it. Like, are you okay just signing a loyalty agreement that protects me for the work that we do together? Are you okay with that? And then if at any point it doesn't work out, hey, like, I'm happy to tear it up, because I'll let you in on a dirty little secret. Like, I don't want to work with people that don't want to work with me. Like 100%. There's a quid pro quo arrangement. So I would do that before I do any real work. But like, the last thing I want to do a fantastic buyer presentation, run through everything, then start highlighting properties for them. And then they're like, no, I'm not going to sign that, but I do have 4 great properties you just found for me. Thanks. I'm going to go get my sister's brother's cousin who just got their license to go ahead and cut me half of the commission on that one.
Well, so let me follow up then. So if you're sending in the buyer brokerage agreement, but you're not going over it with them. So what I found, because I kind of wussed out in the last couple of years. I used to charge a transaction fee and the full 3%. And I kind of backed off with some clients that I've had, we've done several deals. And then I just kind of wussed out and like left it at whatever the commission is, and I haven't. So I'm just curious how you, like, so you go over it with them and talk about that for a minute.
So
Your commission.
I'll go over it. So here's the deal. I go over it with them in fairly broad strokes, but I want you to know that like each buyer is different. If I find that I've got a nuts and bolts black and white buyer, then I'm absolutely going to focus on paperwork and process and ask them, like, are you clear with this? Are you good with this? If somebody's like, Mary said you were great, you guys are awesome, and I can't wait to start looking at houses with you, then I'm like, cool. Like, I'm not going to try to create a problem for myself or create an obstacle to the relationship. Like, it's not being sneaky. I'm happy to divulge, hey, this is great. It's a buyer brokerage agreement. I'm going to send it to you. You can look it over. This lets me negotiate my commission, which on the buyer side is 4%. Helps me to negotiate that. And I charge a broker additional commission. Very cool. I do all that. If you have any questions about it, just let me know. Happy to answer them for you. Until that time that you have questions about it though, cool. Like I feel like I'm going to ask you to read it. I'm not necessarily going to go over it line by line. Like, my goal is to keep the buyer energized, educated, and excited about the process, not necessarily to start creating questions or concerns that maybe they didn't have in the beginning. Does that make sense? I hope that answered it for you. Like, in other words, I'm happy to go over it, but if I don't need to, I'm not going to.
Eric, you said something about 4%. Is that what you put in the buyer brokerage agreement, 4%?
Yep. Absolutely.
And then what happened?
I feel like we're worth it. You know what? I think, you know, everybody charges what they charge. I think that's great. I don't think there's a right answer or a wrong answer. I think that we're in that weird industry, guys, right? Soapbox moment. We're in that weird industry where Julie, who's been working for over 20 years, or me, who's been working for 14 years in the business, we can go show the same $350,000 house and get paid the exact same thing if they use someone who just got their license, right? And so I absolutely think that you should charge what you think you're worth and what you can demonstrate. If you can demonstrate real value for your clients, you know, this is what's so great about our model. You can charge what you want.
So you're charging the buyer the additional 1.5%?
Well, it just depends. Like, sometimes we'll negotiate it. Sometimes we'll negotiate with the seller for additional closing costs. Just depends.
I'm going to jump in with a quick question here as a follow-up to Kathy. Do you ever negotiate it for referrals?
Babe, do we ever negotiate it for referrals? I don't think we do.
What was the question?
When you're charging a commission with a buyer, do you ever negotiate that commission for referrals?
No, what we have in our BBA agreement is that the buyer allows us to negotiate the delta by way of closing costs. So we just take it up with the seller by way of closing costs. And then in our agreement, so we ask for referrals anyways. I mean, I wouldn't say our buyers don't end up paying anything but the $495. Everything else that we negotiate, we do through closing costs. And our buyer brokerage agreement also says on the additional terms that we won't lose a transaction over that delta because we're realtors, have to put our buyer's interests ahead of our own. But this gives us the ability to do that. And no matter what happens, the buyer's responsible for the $495, unless of course it's a DA.
Okay.
That was a trick question, Candy. You're trying to catch her.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't really a trick question.
To my counsel.
I was going to say, no, it really wasn't a trick question. And I know that because I myself have in the past, I had buyers go, well, I don't know about this. And I go, not a problem. You're going to, do referrals.
Well, we ask for them anyways, but they don't get any. They get a gift card from Starbucks for $5 for any referrals they send to us. Thank you.
No,
That's the part.
We appreciate you.
Now that became illegal. That's the part that became illegal. The $5.
Well, not thank you. She's not paying for a referral. I think she's saying
She
What are
cannot
you-
give anything of
Right.
value as a thank you for referrals.
Well,
Not
let's
a
be real,
thank
guys.
you.
The Starbucks card has no value, so bullet dodge. There you go. Bullet dodge.
I just have to lay it out there for somebody when they say that. So any
Hey,
other
Sarah,
questions?
thank you for being a great buyer, by the way. Thanks for playing along. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you, Sarah. Any other
You were a
questions
great,
from
you were a
anybody
great buyer.
else?
I'll get that BBA right over to you. Really can't wait to help you find a home. Oh my God, so excited.
Any other questions?
Yeah, how do you explain the 495 if they push back on it?
Gosh, I've never gotten any pushback on it. Literally. I've never had anybody say anything and ask me about that. I just say, or I think what I might say is, depending on the buyer, I'll say something like, you haven't even asked me when I finish my dog and pony show. I say, you know what, Sarah, you haven't even asked me how much all this is going to cost you. And they'll say, how much is it going to cost? And I'm like, 10 grand. I'm kidding. $495. That's all we charge. Broker additional commission. Get out of here. Isn't that a deal? Sign right here.
You did a great job. Great job.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, you know what, guys? Listen, I'm not so amazing, right? That's probably my wife. I will tell you guys that you can have some fun. I always want to have fun with my people, depending on who they are. I don't want to be like a laughing idiot or a clown, but when I meet with people, like I want them to know, hey, I'm not selling you a used car. By the way, nobody sells houses, right? You find a house, you negotiate for people. That's where we provide the value, relationships, knowledge, expertise, keeping them safe. You know, like my whole goal with this is that in real estate, you can be anybody that you want to be. It's show business. It really is show business, right? It's like you want to come in. It's like if you're good with people, if you do your job, if you keep your skill set sharp, and you can have some fun with them, knowing that it's going to be a high stress, high emotional experience, right? Like, but you can be the big determiner as to like how you can keep everything under control. And so that all starts in this meeting. That's why this meeting is critical, right? If I can't do a buyer consult with somebody, like I won't work with them. If someone is just like, here, I found a house and I'm qualified, like write an offer for me. I'm like, no, because I already know what that's going to turn into. It's going to be a shit show. Pardon my French. Like it's going to be the deal that you can't close and that you have to do all kinds of crazy after hours work on because then you're too far invested in the transaction to give it up. So I'd rather find all that out in the beginning and find out if I'm going to actually enjoy working with somebody. It really is a two-way interview. Are they going to like working with me? Cool. Am I going to like working with them? All right, awesome. Let's go do this thing. It's going to be a lot more fun that way and a lot more lucrative over the long term, I think.
And I will agree with that double. That's a great way to think about it, Eric. Thank you.
Cool. Hey, thanks
Okay.
everybody for tuning in. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. Thank you, Eric.
Let's go sell some houses. Yay, yay.
Okay.
Thank you guys. And thank you, Candy, for setting.
Bye.
Very
Goodbye.
nice.
Bye so much.
Hey,
I'm
Candy?
doing trees. I'm doing